Hi, welcome to Behind the Badge. I'm Chief Alan Rodbell with Scottsdale Police Department. With me is Miss Chris Basal, our community liaison, who's having a moment all by herself.
Hi everybody, how are you today?
Just in preparation to getting started, we get a little crazy.
Yep.
We do want to talk about something that I think is pretty cool. It's what's happening this month in the city of Scottsdale with the police department. If you kind of focus in on my bicep there, you'll see our pink patch. This is the first time we've done this. A lot of departments around the country have done it. We didn't create this, but we're doing pink patches on our uniforms for the month of October to recognize Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And the officers have purchased their patches themselves and have had the patches put on their uniforms and be wearing them all this month. And fundraising, first time effort fundraising,
Cool.
we made about $4,000 to
I
give
know.
to cancer awareness research.
It was totally cool and totally awesome. And so I know people will be asking the officers, why do you have a pink patch on? But that's the reason why. And we're so proud of the officers for doing this. I mean, it was their idea. They bought into it fully, and people donated money to buy the patches.
Yep. So shout out to Mike Clore, who's one of our officers. This was his idea. He's a member of the Police Officers Scottsdale Association. He's been on our TV show a number of times as we get closer to the Christmas season and talk about some of their activities at Christmas time and shopping with a young person during those holidays, and also back to school. They help out with back to school needs. But the cool thing about this is that this has been going on for a while around the country, and I was always interested in doing this, but there were some logistical issues I had, some questions I had. Well, Officer Clore came into my office and had a proposal that addressed all of those issues. Right away he had them all addressed, which I found just wonderful. And so as a result of that, he took the ball rolling with it, and quite frankly, like I said, about $4,000 in his first year effort.
I know,
and
that's
this will probably
amazing.
grow through the years.
And that was just within our department. So
Yes.
this is just officers that wear a uniform, and then they have the option to sew it on their uniform for the month of October. But also, like, SIPA's bought some patches that we're going to put in the museum, and so civilians also bought them, although they don't wear a uniform. They are, wanting to show their support. So
Some of our civilians do, of course, wear uniforms.
yeah, the
Absolutely.
police aides, yes, some that do wear uniforms would be also if they wanted to participate.
Okay.
So I think it's really cool.
It's cool. So you used the word SIPAs in a sentence?
Citizens Police Academy alumni of Scottsdale. You guys should know that, right?
They
talk
should know
about
that,
them.
all of
Yeah,
them.
we talk
Yeah.
about them all the time, but CIPAs is the Citizens Police Academy alumni, and those are the folks that join the organization after coming through Citizens Academy, and they want to become members of that organization. And of course, it's a 501(c), and all the money that they raise by selling items and doing all sorts of continuing education. The money that they raise funds the museum, and they do a lot of stuff for our police department with their funds. 100% of the money received goes back to PD.
Yeah.
They're all volunteers. Nobody gets paid for being on the board.
And so, speaking of Citizens Academy, we're in session now. Graduation soon. The fall session will be ending. Spring session will be beginning after the first of the year. People that are interested, just go online and fill out an application.
Correct.
Okay.
And actually, I already have 7 applications
Okay.
for spring. So again, we talk about this a lot. It fills up pretty quickly. So just give me a holler if you need some help, and I'll walk you through it and give you the dates. It's March and April, 8 consecutive Thursday evenings from 6 to 9 p.m.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. So today we're doing a little bit of a follow-up to what we did last month.
Right. We talked about this.
Last month we talked about active shooter training within the police department and how we prepare for these kinds of tragedies if they were unfortunately to occur in our community. And regardless of what the setting might be, whether it's a work setting, recreational setting, gathering, or in schools,
Correct.
how officers and members of the organization prepare.
Right.
Today we're kind of talking about how we work with the community in preparation of the community and their workplace or living areas or schools or churches or
Correct.
whatever, right?
Trying to prepare them should they be caught in a situation where there is an active shooter, and what are some of the things that you can do? And although a lot of it is common sense, in that situation, you're first of all, you don't understand what's happening. Second of all, your reaction may not be as quick. Thus why we train our officers. So today we brought a couple experts that maybe can give our citizens some advice on what to do, because we know they're going to freeze up. Anybody would freeze up. how many times have you heard on the news that somebody says, it sounded like firecrackers? We didn't know that it was gunfire. So today our sergeant and officer are here to give the citizens a few tips on what they can do and what they should expect psychologically, and some of the steps they can take to keep themselves and their family safe.
And it just goes to say that if you think about something ahead of time and have some idea ahead of time of how you should react or what your options are, if it, God forbid, ever does happen, you've thought some things through already, as opposed to just being shocked and being completely caught off guard.
Exactly, and like the sergeant was saying last week, and the lieutenant, the officers train, and that's what they do, because then it just becomes second nature, and you just immediately go into that training mode. Well, today we're going to try to teach you how to do things so you can train, and teach your family the same, especially your children at school and stuff. So this can common sense things that can hopefully help you in a terrible situation.
Sounds great. Why don't you introduce our guests?
I would love to. Thank you. First, to my immediate left, is Officer Travis Kirby. He has two names that I always get them confused, but Travis and Sergeant Henson. Josh Henson is here. Sarge is the Homeland Security Director, and Officer Kirby is our Crime Prevention Officer for the District 1 station, which is the McAllen station. So welcome to our show.
Welcome, guys. Good to have you here.
Appreciate being here.
So you both have very different jobs, so we just start off just talking a little bit about who you are and how you got in the position you're at and your experience with the department. A lot of our viewers like to know that about our employees.
Sure.
So Sergeant, I'll start with you, please.
So I'm Josh Hansen. Like she said, I've been here for the department. I actually spent 2 different iterations. I came for a while and then went and traveled, trained police overseas for a while, and then came back. So I have a unique experience in that regard, because I was exposed to a lot of different departments around the country, which actually helps a lot when talking about how people do things differently. So that being said, I probably, once I came back, I got into the training as an RTO at the Academy. RTO is a recruit training officer. So that's the basic training for recruits around the state. We teach them their 18 to 20 weeks of basic training, defensive tactics, shooting, driving, how to interact with people, deal with mental health issues, etc. And then once I was done with that, I came back here, promoted to sergeant, did some little detective work, was in narcotics for a while. Once I became a sergeant, I worked on the road and went back to the academy as an academy training sergeant. So there was less smiling and more discipline involved in that role. But found it very important to meet the recruits and the new aspiring officers when they were fresh and hungry coming out of civilian jobs and wanting to make a difference. One of my most favorite jobs. As much as you're not up here with anybody anymore, you lose that connection because you have to assume a father figure role for some, and others it's just kind of recorrecting them on some training habits and issues that will help them be successful officers when they respond to the road. And then currently I moved into this role about a year ago, and this role is focused on active shooter training. And again, it covers the gamut. We have a lot of partners that overlap. Travis is one of them. The training unit's another, where we train not only in the last year, we'll get into it more, I'm sure, but we train in rescue task force. We can talk about that a little longer with the police and fire. I maybe alluded to it last week or got into details. But that's how the administration and the staff of police and fire work together in a new kind of response, which was not traditional to locking down the facility and waiting for the SWAT team, which was kind of the old school tactics. So we trained some of that through some grant money and some collaboration with the fire department. And then Travis and a lot of the guys are teaching hands-on to city employees. So we teach those exposures on how to react in city buildings and as well as reaching out to the partners in the community. And so I kind of help coordinate that. And these guys do the heavy lifting most of the time, but we're targeting, again, the city and stuff like that. So he's not the only one with a bicep, chief. So, so that's kind of the main job right now. And then additionally, we'll work on threat assessments on structures. So partnering with schools, businesses, and city facilities to make sure that if there's simple things we can do to make things safer, if it's putting up a large planter in front of the glass door out front so somebody couldn't accidentally drive a vehicle through or otherwise to provide safety, maybe installing some cameras and then making suggestions on some security measures that will help people be safer.
Such great advice.
Yeah, we'll get more into that detail, of course,
Yeah,
in a moment. But
definitely.
just to kind of explain a little bit of the relationship between last month's program with this month's program. So correct me if I'm wrong, but not on camera. So you actually report to Lieutenant Tom Myers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, who was here last month.
No.
But
Yeah.
yes,
James Piazza was here last month.
oh, I thought Myers was here
No,
also.
he wasn't here.
Where was I last month?
It was Piazza, but Myers has been here, Chief. That's
Okay.
why. Myers did
See,
talk
I'm not
about
on
some
camera.
of
You're
it.
supposed to correct me on
Sorry.
camera. They don't edit this stuff out.
Piazza, because I don't want Lieutenant Piazza to think that
I
we
knew he was
here.
here. I thought both of them were
Yeah,
here.
no,
That's fine.
yeah.
All right, never mind. But you report to a lieutenant
Yes,
that's
sir.
been in the program before.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on.
Sorry.
That's all right. Moving along. Travis, how are you been?
I'm well.
Good.
Chief,
You know
thank
where you are today.
I do.
Yeah, okay. Travis, you've been here for a while now, of course, in terms of the police department. You've had several other experiences between the new position you're in now, which isn't so new anymore, I suspect, and the years of service. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
So I
please?
just hit 19 years, September 1st. So a combined total of 6 years in patrol, 8 years in the K-9 unit. The last 5 years I've been the crime prevention officer for the McKellips district, which is everything south of Osborne. So it's been very fun, very challenging. The most socioeconomic diverse population we have in Scottsdale, south of Osborne, and it's been a lot of fun. You pulled in a lot of different directions, but it is certainly fun and some very fulfilling work. So
A lot of problem solving, I suspect,
Yeah.
as well as creating not solutions, but preventive ideas in terms of making sure this community is safe before any issues occur. Which brings us to this topic. This really is about preparing the community for any tragedy that might occur. So, how do you guys interact between your two positions? You're on the street. You're in a district station. You're in office with responsibilities citywide. How do you two interact?
Well, typically, because we have so many, the crime prevention officers have so many contacts in the community, and we're talking to people daily, whether it's through email or in person or on the phone, we will have a request come in to do some sort of active shooter presentation or training or something related to facilities emergency plan, something like that. So what we do is we loop Sergeant Hinson in on that so we can recap all of our mitigation efforts, and also so we're all on the same page with a consistent message and what we're actually training, and all the sign-in sheets go to him. And so we really are the ones, because I'm down south on every website and everything, I'm the first person listed, so I end up getting a lot of requests that I end up sending to the other districts because it's their district. But we're kind of like the contact, really, that a lot of people reach out to.
You're the
for
training
help.
unit that actually goes out and physically does it, because I know they come to me a lot too and ask for this active shooter. I mean, with all the things that are in the news right now, and with our citizens knowing what a department that we have, that we are so community outreach, they wonder, do we have such a program? And yes, we do. And Travis would be one of the persons that would teach at a business should they request such a training.
So we have 4 district stations. Are all 4 of the community services crime prevention officers, are they also trainers?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so they're all. So if someone were to call for service, depending on where they are in the city,
Correct.
they would get one of those 4 to be part of the training program or help put it on. So I'm interested. I guess we'll put up some phone numbers at the end of the program where people that might want to reach out, maybe perhaps see if everybody calls you, and you can get them to the right number.
Or me, they call
or
me
to
too.
you.
Yep.
We can make sure that service is available. So, not just when we talk about schools, we talk about businesses, but what other kinds of people have, or agencies or groups have called for assistance in this matter?
Well, I'll set it up for Travis because I was there, but he took the primary role of teaching. But I mean, the community center, we were out there recently in the last month or so, right?
Yeah. Paiute-
Teaching to their staff, Paiute Center.
Paiute Neighborhood Center.
Over here south in District 1. So a multitude of schools in there, and I'll let you talk more about it because that's your area. But
We have gotten requests from everything from homeschool groups to houses of worship to the largest employer in our district, which has 3,500 employees, which is something we're doing in November for them. And usually what we find is we're lucky if they'll carve out an hour for us. And so we really have to try and hammer home some points and get the message across in an hour. But it's nothing crazy like we go in and drop flashbangs and try and scare everybody. It really, what I try and focus on, and regardless of the presentation I'm doing, if I'm doing a senior safety presentation, I always include a couple slides on active shooter. Regardless of the presentation, I always put it in there, just to get people to start opening their minds and start thinking through things, think and plan. because that's the best way to survive one of these things, is to plan ahead of time, know what your evacuation routes are, know where, if you're going to lock down, where the safest places are. And that's really what I focus on is the psychological effect, the physiological effects, and what you're going to have to really fight through on your own, everything that your body and your mind that are doing to you, what you're going to have to fight through to make decisions to live.
And if I could piggyback on that just a tad, this is about active shooter response, and we love teaching about it, we love educating as many people as possible. But the reality is much of the response is going to be the same if it's a collapsed building, if it's a fire, if it's a crisis of any other kind where there's either trauma or drama or crime happening. So I'm not taking away from active shooter, but in some of things are going to be subtly different. But as far as knowing your evacuation route, communicating to your people, accountability pieces or where the exits are or how to notify the next person that is responsible or how the police will respond, those talking points are what matter for all the communities, regardless of whether or not we teach you a one-on-one class or we come out to your location. Recognize that if you're talking to your people about what could happen and what to prepare for, like Chief said in the opening, if you have a thought about what will happen and you've thought about it before, you're way ahead of the people who have not thought about it yet.
And so if I were a business owner or responsible for a facility, I would suspect my role and responsibility goes beyond your 1 hour visit. I suspect when you leave them with some sort of responsibility to follow up or to do more or create plans. How do you get that across?
Well,
No, please.
no.
I like hearing you talk, so.
I kind of look at it like we have 3 phases. We do a presentation, we do tabletop exercises, and then if we can actually coordinate it and we have the resources, then we do some sort of reality-based training scenarios. Now, a lot of businesses won't give us the time because it's just massive coordination, and
Right.
we don't want to go in and shut down a community center for a day just to run scenarios for the employees there. But we give people a number of resources like the FEMA website, the Department of Homeland Security website, ready.gov. We both really like ready.gov because it's everything from a personal emergency plan at home. They have templates all the way to business continuity plans for large businesses. Like they have
Free.
all
free of charge.
They have tons of really, really good templates from emergency plans so I really like ready.gov. DHS, their website has tons of stuff to refer to as far as everything from indicators to potential violence all the way to actually writing an active shooter plan for your business. So
A lot of resources available to people if they just know where to look,
Sure.
which this program will help because then we can, put your names and numbers down and then you guys can refer these people to this stuff because there are resources out there to help. This information is power.
And to answer, he answered your question thoroughly, but the summarization of that is that once we go out and we talk to them and expose them to the stuff, then it's kind of on them to take a little ownership. They own the business, they own their people, they care about their well-being. We make suggestions and recommendations and hope that they follow up with that because resources are limited no matter where you work. So.
I suspect part of it is they get to know you as a person and you as a service, and they would hopefully, if they see something that they think is concerning in terms of behavior or something came in through email or by telephone or by letter that was kind of concerning, they would feel comfortable reaching out saying, hey, we got this, should we be concerned about this? Just so you're sharing
Point of
information
contact.
and point of
Sure.
contact.
Absolutely.
I suppose that's the biggest part of this, right? As opposed to dialing 911 and not knowing who's going to show up or how they're going to show up.
Sure.
Takes a little mystery
Unless
away.
you need 911, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
If something in progress, of course, then you would.
But I'm suggesting that
It's
this
a
might
pre.
open up some of that conduit of conversation to prevent something from occurring as opposed to reacting to something that has just occurred.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's take some of the mystery out, some of the things that you share with people on a regular basis that's sort of consistent across all venues and kinds of activities. What kinds of information do you share during these meetings?
Well, we both have some different things, and as we talk, I'm sure that'll stimulate some thoughts in the other head. But one of the biggest things, we've addressed it 2 or 3 different times, is just putting somebody in this situation. So if your everyday has never been, let's just rewind. I'd say the majority of people have never had an interaction with a police officer. Okay, if they have, usually that's on an accident, like a traumatic day. You got an accident, you got maybe a domestic dispute, maybe your child went missing even though they just disappeared for 20 minutes in the mall, or worse. And so most of those days people call 911, it's because they need help and they can't solve that problem by themselves. So the rest haven't met police before. And so getting that exposure to us is great. And at the same time talking through about what could happen in a traumatic event. Because if you haven't gone in a traumatic event before, if you haven't dealt with that before, you have no idea how to respond. So some of the basics, I mean, there's a generic, the Homeland Security has had a three-phase kind of advice for a while. It's run, hide, fight. And so I would say that there's more to elaborate on that, of course, but those are some great options when you're faced with a dynamic situation is if you can get away from somewhere, if you hear something happening, you can get out, run as far and as fast as you can, and then call police. That's the best advice I can give to anybody. If you have kids that are this big and they can run and they know what's happening, then don't tell them to run outside and cover up and hide their head, but run down the block if they can, because more than likely that person who's creating chaos is going to stick around in the situation. And I know you have a bunch of other thoughts.
Yeah, to really instruct on this stuff, present it, you kind of have to become an expert in seeing and researching all the previous incidents, to look at the commonalities, to look at, like the Parkland shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, how many people died on the first floor as opposed to the second floor as opposed to the third floor, and why, and what the timing was and everything. And so with that, you have to emphasize to people, you have to accept that this is a reality. We're not trying to scare anyone or traumatize anyone. You have to accept it's a reality and plan for it. And so what I usually tell people is when you're watching the news every night, look at those things on the news that are coming out and put yourself in that situation. And think through in your mind, how would you survive that? How would you survive that? That's, to me, the easiest way, because instead of having it be like a paralysis or hysteria or traumatizing, that's horrible. I mean, obviously any loss of life is horrible, but put yourself in that situation and mentally rehearse surviving it. So something that you talked about is, and we always say, see something, say something. Something that we also cover is indicators of potential violence. The reality is, when it comes down to this, what we really want people to do is report suspicious activity, report concerns. Because again, if you research a majority of these things that have happened in the past, there's a very high percentage of them where the suspects have actually put information out there that has caused concern to others.
Sure.
So what we want people to do is report these things, whether it's through their chain of command at work or if it's to the police, something concerning, because the ultimate goal is to intervene in this before it becomes a loss of life. So particularly at work, we have one business in South Scottsdale that we sat down with recently, and they have an employee assistance program, and in order to keep their jobs, if somebody's displaying troubling behavior, they have to go through their EAP program. And so the whole goal is to get people the resources they need to intervene before it comes to loss of life. That's the whole point of reporting things. And that's kind of challenging in our society to explain to people. It's not about, because a lot of people don't want to get involved, and so, but you never know how many lives you could save.
Including the person that may consider doing something
sure.
they regret. I mean, the idea is get them the help that they need and the support they need to get through whatever stress they're experiencing. So you mentioned run, hide, fight. Heard that before. I hear that sometimes in some of the things that might be available to people, either online or through television and the news. What is that? What does that mean?
So run, hide, fight is kind of an easy way to remember the response in case you're caught up in a crisis situation like that. So if you are able to recognize, going back to what he mentioned earlier, awareness is key. So the run, hide, fight is applicable if you're caught in the middle of a situation. Prevention is probably number one, because if you have your head in your phone all the time when you're walking, if you park and hit the lock but you don't look up or you don't look to see who's in the area, you may, and there's some great videos online, some of the websites we shared, I think we'll show some of those, where you can see subtly, there's a great movie, and I can't remember who put it on, if you want reference, I'll look it up for you. But they actually show a high school and the interaction daily about everybody doing their stuff, and Johnny and Sally and everybody running around. And then in the background, when you do the rewind of the video, very slow motion, is the next active shooter demonstrating signs and symptoms. But nobody's paying attention to that. So that's something I like to focus on. I know you talked about it, but as far as run, hide, fight goes, we can get into that more later. But run, hide, fight is basically, once you're involved in a situation, those are your three three summarized options.
Options.
Run is, I addressed a little bit earlier, you get out. If you can get out, get out. So if the attack comes from the front door and you know there's a back door right here, exit, which we talk about in preparation and planning, so you get out and you run and as fast as you can. And if somebody, you know, doesn't want to go because they're scared, you give them a quick amount of time to kind of change their mind, but if not, you're sacrificing yourself. And so that's an individual call, and I don't you know, proclaim to be the expert in that. But the generic basic guidance in that response is if you can get out, you run away as fast as you can. Hide would be, okay, there's no other exits, or we know he's in the next room, so what are we going to do? We're going to probably put something up against the door. We're going to hide in a closet. We're going to go into a locked door. We try and identify some, if you can, some centralized safe rooms in each of the buildings. So if you have a building that doesn't have glass and it's a kitchen or maybe the conference room and those are good solid doors and dead bolted, maybe that's where we do when we do our planning. The hiding would be our doors are adjacent to that. Now, granted, I'm not suggesting you run 4 floors or 6 rooms away to get to this hide room, because I'd say get out of the place is number one. But if you're nearby and you have no other options, you go to that safe room and try and lock it down. So again, don't jump there first. Don't just go and hide immediately. But if you can't get away running wise, then you want to hide. And hiding again is putting things up against the door, a bunch of people together deciding, you know, we're not going to let this happen. We're going to get out of sight. If there's a window, you want to make sure you're out of the window. So the guy, oftentimes psychologically, when someone, even a shooter or somebody perpetrating some kind of crime, they're also at high, their adrenaline's flowing. So they're not making phenomenal decisions. Sometimes they see a door closed, that's enough for them to keep going. Or they just turn the handle, it's locked. I'm not going to, unless I know that somebody in there is my target or that's the goal, you next door. And so that's the part of the hiding that may be beneficial.
Or
and then
concentrate the fight. Yeah.
Yeah, the fight. And we don't always, again, they're not necessarily sequential. Run, hide, fight in that order. I obviously optimize run just because you can get away, get away. The fight is a more challenging one because, again, most people aren't programmed to
Stop
physical confrontation. Okay, so, however, the fight is more about if you're in this room and he's in this room and you can't run and you can't hide, you got 2 choices. You can give up and probably be one of the victims, or you can try and fight. And if you know that there's nowhere to go and you can't lock that door, then you look around the room to grab anything that might be beneficial to you. You commit to that, and you say that if he comes in, I'm going to hit him with the computer monitor or the phone book or throw whatever you have you can at him.
Just give it everything you've got, because that you're at that end where you have to give it everything you got. I could think of the people on the plane on 9/11.
That's a great example.
It's a perfect example. What was the famous line that they said? Let's roll.
Let's roll.
Let's roll. And that's what you have to do.
I want
man,
to
this
thank
went
you guys.
fast.
It went really fast.
Did it really?
I
Yes.
want to tell you guys, we really appreciate what you do every day. The fact that you're resources to our community and to the organization itself is just phenomenal. I want to thank you for that. We'll put up some information at the end. You may get a lot more contacts as a result of this, but again, thank you for everything you do to keep our community safe, and you've been great guests. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, that's another month.
I hope that helped follow
yeah.
up from last month.
Absolutely. And we wish you the best, and we'll see you sometime, I guess, next month. Between now and then, just be safe and take care. Thank you so much. Thanks
Have
for
a
being
happy
with us.
Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween. Watch the kids.
Watch the kids and the candy.
Eat the candy. Watch
Bye.
the kids. Thank you all.